With more than a couple episodes, American Dad has more than a few side characters. Ahoy hoy gang, if this is your first time with us, welcome. If you're joining us from a previous video, hey, we love to see it and I hope you're doing well. My favorite kind of diagram is a Venn. Here's my American Dad side characters, top 10! Woo! Number 10, Delmonico. Alright, this one is very, very biased. This whole list is biased. What can I say? I'm a biased reviewer. I think Delmonico is one of Andy Richter's best characters, and every time I see him on screen, I love him. And I think that's because Delmonico is never a caricature of Delmonico, but Delmonico is always Delmonico. I know that sounds weird, but like, everybody gets their drugs from Delmonico. Of course they do. And Delmonico's just like, hey Francine, how's it going? I'm here to help. Everybody loves Delmonico, and Delmonico loves everyone. He is never an antagonist of a story. He is always along for the ride and there to have a good time. Delmonico adds brevity and just lightheartedness to any episode, and he's a drug dealer. Like, he is not a good person, arguably, but he's a fun person. It's like Doctor Who in BoJack Horseman. He doesn't need to be the center of conflict or even have an episode focused around him, but when he's there, when he's a part of a Roger B story or a Francine A story, Wild Women Do is only half as good as it is because of Tom Kenny and Andy Richter. I mean, and that's the other thing is like, I grew up watching Conan. Conan is a huge part of my life, so of course I love me some Andy Richter. And I genuinely believe that Delmonico is a career best performance for Andy Richter. I think he is a great character for him. I think he has a lot of fun playing him. And it's just so great to hear someone energized to play a character, especially a character like Delmonico. It's just, I expected him to be a one-off character, and you know, much like Rogu, they never use him too much. They never show you too much of Delmonico for you to get tired of Delmonico. I could have another 8 episodes of just Delmonico interacting with the Smith house and love it. He is by far one of my favorite characters to see in an episode, and that's why he got on the list. Number 9, Dr. Calgary. Look, all I'm saying is watch Creature Commandos Season 1. It's really, really good. Maybe I'll do a review of it. Maybe because it's so graphic, it'll be Patreon exclusive. Maybe I'm rambling. Who knows? I love Alan Tudyk. I love when Alan Tudyk's a voice actor. He's a great voice actor. He went to Juilliard. And he has, again, so much fun playing Dr. Calgary. I was so hesitant with Dr. Calgary in Roots, but the fact that he's introduced to the family through Klaus allows him to be the most unhinged doctor imaginable and allows them to have a character that they can interact with that is not gonna, you know, snitch on them or be weirded out that an alien is giving birth to Jeff, or, you know, Stan has a nail in his head, but he needs to have a fancy hat immediately. Like, that's, I think so much of that just comes from how Alan Tudyk decides to play Dr. Calgary. Like the, Billy, get them a LaCroix. It's just like, it actually really kind of reminds me of the principal from like Clone High. It's so fun, and I think he's one of the best additions of the TBS era. Like, and you know, a lot of these are actually from the TBS era, and I love that. I love that we can have characters, you know, 8, 9, 10, 11 seasons in that are able to become mainstays that show up and have, you know, mini arcs of their own. You know, you see Dr. Calgary make a son in one of the best characters, and I will fight people on this. You know, he gets married, he does all these weird things in Langley on the side that the Smith family are invited to, but never necessarily at the center of. Dr. Calgary is kept very much as a side character. He never creeps too much into an episode. And again, that's one of American Dad's great strengths. They use side characters very, very little until they know what they really want to do with them. And I could hear Alan Tudyk do his Dr. Calgary voice all day long. And that's why you watch Creature Commandos. He's Dr. Phosphorus, and he's amazing. Number 8, Santa. I debated on this one, and when you hear it, you'll understand why. See, I do enjoy Matt McKenna. He's a producer on American Dad, and he voices exactly 2 characters, Santa and Buckle. And I love Buckle, don't get me wrong. He has some of the best lines. He is a Disney Imagineer. He has a lot of charm to him. Apocalypse to Remember is one of my favorite episodes. But I think Santa as a whole is just a better side character because he is a proper antagonist for the Smiths. Buckle's just doing his Buckle thing. He's just hanging out. He's always helping them. Sometimes he's a part of episodes. Sometimes he isn't. Did you know that Buckle was a doctor in the TBS era? That's great to learn. But just hearing Santa come up with all these crazy schemes and going after Stan, I love that it's not that traditional trope of like, oh, they were bad for Christmas. It's like, nah, Steve shot up Santa and Santa decided to vow revenge. Perfectly justified, 100% justified. And it becomes this surreal adventure where, yeah, Santa's not a good guy, but he's gonna be upsetty spaghetti. And I love it. I love it so much. Every time I see a Santa episode, I have not been disappointed. Even in the new season with Mrs. Claus, loved it. I loved what they did with Santa, and the fact that they're still being able to, be creative with him 10 years after he premiered is fantastic. Remember Family Guy Santa? No, not really. How about the Simpsons Santa? No, but you can remember the American Dad Santa. You can remember your favorite interactions between the Smith family and Santa. And Santa tries to take over the world. That's great. I love that Santa is jaded. I love that Santa is scheming. And, sometimes the Smiths are in the right to stop him. Other times, Merry Wednesday, son. A petty, almost narcissistic Santa is the best kind of Santa for a comedy like this. And I genuinely believe he is one of the strongest Christmas characters ever created. Number 7, Billy. My boys, my precious boys. I know, I'll probably get some heat for this one, but hear me out. Like I've said in the past, brevity is the key. You never see more than you can handle of Billy. And I love that Billy goes to school with Steve and the gang, and he involves himself in their adventures and becomes one of their crew. I adore his, going around the world with the curly fry. I had a spicy soup and buried my son, Mitsuhiro, but it never touched the ground. That's perfect. That is how you make a character. I like Dr. Calgary, don't get me wrong, and I adore Alan Tudyk, but the fact that Billy is Kevin Michael Richardson, the fact that he is Principal Lewis, blows my mind every time I hear him. Every time I revisit the episodes, I'm like, that is Kevin Michael Richardson. That is one of the most prolific voices of the modern age, and he's playing Billy, a guy that pulls both shotguns and his arms fall off. Like, it is perfect. He is a perfect addition to the cast. Again, the TBS era, nothing but bangers, obviously. And I know I will get a lot of flack for that, but I love Billy. At first, disgusted by Billy. But even that first, get the LaCroix. We're out. I don't have X-ray vision. Perfect delivery. Wonderful delivery. The way those characters play off of each other is beautiful. And yet, and this is probably the one thing that, pushes it over the top. In the episode where Rogu and Klaus are, on their Wild West adventure, and Billy is singing about his sweet Rogu opposite Stan and Tequila Joe, I was laughing so hard, I was curled up on the floor crying. I love my sweet Rogu. Why? Why does he care? Billy's older brother? Sure, why not? Of course he's just a bigger, lengthier Billy. He is the perfect representation of the absurdity of modern American Dad in a great way. I just like how Santa has transcended both the Fox and TBS eras and has evolved because of it. Billy and Dr. Calgary are a perfect representation that they have never lost the juice. They have never lost that creative insight that makes American Dad as evergreen as it is. Billy is the canary in the coal mine that is happy, healthy, and tweeting about his sweet Rogu. Number 6, Dick. Maybe this is just because I absolutely love the episode Roger Needs Dick, because they did a Leon the Professional reference in it. Didn't call attention to it. He didn't say, like, you know, my name is Reno Gene or anything. It's just, the episode's great. Watch Roger Needs Dick. You know, in the beginning of the show, Dick was played by Stephen Root, a person that I absolutely adore. I love his voice acting. I love his acting. He's one of my favorite actors of all time, and he did a great job with him. But then David Koechner took over, and he gave him that unbridled Dick energy. And I think ever since Stan's Night Out, Dick has just evolved into this perfect foil to Stan. I love all of Stan's work friends, but my favorite will always be Dick. Dick knows what he's doing. Everybody knows Dick. Dick has some A stories he's a part of, some B stories he's a part of, but every time I see Dick, I can trust Dick. I know that Dick is gonna give me quality. I know I am gonna get a good dicking down. Dick will always be there for me, and I will always be there for Dick. Dick polishing aside, it's just, again, these characters that have been around from the Fox era, that have evolved into the TBS era, show how the show has evolved. They've shown how the show has grown. You know, while I've been working on my Family Guy review, the consensus seems to be, while Family Guy does evolve through the years, it does not evolve into something well, much akin to a velociraptor turning into a dodo. But Dick, Buckle, you know, Santa, they show that the show is always advancing. It is always becoming something more. And I love that you can just as easily make the CIA boys, the Alphabet Boys, that much more endearing by showing us more and more out there missions that they're going on with Stan. Remember, during the Fox era, they were largely believable missions to some degree, other than, you know, Reginald, and he used to be nothing. I'm not putting Reggie on this list. I know, he's a great character and cute as a button. You know, attack me in the comments for it, I don't care. He was fine. I think we can all agree that he was fine, and all the "where's Reggie" discourse didn't need to happen. But Dick is eternal. Dick will always be there, and I love that Dick has a story. Dick is a pathetic man, but we love Dick. Who doesn't love Dick? Number 5, Greg. All right, so now we're in the top 5. These are 5 characters I could probably do just an entire, 40-minute dissection on. These are characters that are, I would argue, integral to the core of American Dad. And as unassuming as it is, I think Greg is one of the perfect gauges for how American Dad has evolved through the years. You know, when you look at the beginning of American Dad with Greg, you know, Stan can't believe that Greg and Terry are gay. He is very much, they're just two guys that are happy being guys. And, you know, in the early seasons of the Fox era, it's him finding out that Greg is a log cabin Republican, and, you know, being against Greg and Terry having a kid, and it's all, you know, gay people can't do that. I'm Stan Smith. I stand against that. But as time has gone on, Greg has become more than his sexuality. Greg is gay. Greg is still very, very gay to this day. He even has, you know, that sort of romance with Memphis Stormfront where they're, you know, flirting from time to time. And he's very obviously Seth MacFarlane's gay voice. You've heard the voice before, you know what I'm talking about. But compare him to, say, Bruce from Family Guy. Even in these most recent seasons, we've seen Greg have issues with being a broadcaster, having a little too much fun on the party powder and helping get neighbors kicked out of the neighborhood. But he is a multifaceted character. When you look at Bruce from his first introduction to the modern day, he can be really wrapped up in 2 words. Oh no. Like, Bruce and Jeffrey have taken, let's say, 20 years to get to the point where Greg and Terry were at, like, season 4 of American Dad. So by that logic, in another 20 years, Bruce will actually be half the kind of character Greg is today. Greg is so much more than when he was first introduced. You know, Greg and Terry are a gay couple that do the news. And even that was funny in its own right. It's incredibly performed. Seth MacFarlane does a great job playing Greg. But again, if we get Greg, we don't get him for, an entire episode. There are other characters to break it up. There are other people that involve themselves. And I love that Greg and Francine have this weird friendship, this weird relationship. The episode where Francine tries to scare Greg is terrific, where she's just walking across with the hatchet. I love that. We don't appreciate how well-rounded American Dad's characters are until we look back at them. Until we're halfway through a Family Guy review coming soon and realize we really were eating good in the neighborhood in American Dad. I appreciate Greg the more I watch Family Guy, and I never thought I'd ever say that. Number 4, Avery Bullock. Now, I think this is the point where if I told the audience to get out your pen and paper and pause the video now, write your top 3 choices after this character, you could probably guess who the next 3 are gonna be. And if I ask you to make a list of your top 10 side characters, I don't think anyone would omit Avery Bullock. Bullock is why American Dad is even half as good as it is. And I think largely that comes down to the fact that Patrick Stewart seems to be having just an absolute ball playing him and will say almost anything as the character. The fact that he just has free reign to just be as wild and unhinged as the Smith family, and he's the head of the CIA, is perfect. There are so many Bullock episodes that I just straight up adore. He is one of the best characters in American Dad. He is one of the best characters of all time, and it shows that Patrick Stewart never takes himself too seriously. And obviously, Seth MacFarlane is a huge Star Trek fan, more specifically a huge TNG fan. Otherwise, the Orville wouldn't exist. The Orville! The episodes of TNG you didn't realize you wanted. Featuring Norm Macdonald. So there's always that chance that, you'll want to treat a character played by, someone like Patrick Stewart with a little bit of respect, a little bit of grace. But no, that's not Bullock. Bullock is going to say the most unhinged things imaginable. He's going to do the most unhinged things imaginable, and it's going to be great. That first real adventure with Bullock when he's sleeping with Haley, I think is the perfect way to sort of shift the paradigm, to sort of shift him from being that by the books, rules enforcing CIA guy to just, he's going to be whatever we need him to be, and that's going to be fine. He's absolutely going to have, a holodeck that he doesn't know what a holodeck is because some people were having sex, Smith. That's perfect. I love what they've done with Bullock, and I love that through the years he's just gotten more and more crazy with the tempo of the show. He never feels out of place. He never feels like the show outgrew him. He fits perfectly. And that's really the magic of a great side character. Do you really think Disco Stu in The Simpsons, is as strong in 2024 as he was, 2004? Probably not. But director Bullock has been fantastic from 2005 all the way to, I'll say it early, 2025. I am always excited to see him. I am always excited to hear what Patrick Stewart has to say. He is one of the greatest elements of the entire show, bar none. Number 3, Principal Lewis. I see you patting yourself on the back. You knew he'd be here. I didn't gush about this character for, 15 plus seasons once he started to really start going. But of course, Principal Lewis is going to be up there. Not only is Kevin Michael Richardson an absolute generational talent who does incredible things, Principal Lewis is just unhinged in the best possible way. I say that a lot, but it's true. Hey, what's your favorite Principal Shepard line from Family Guy? Too slow. I know you don't have one. Don't lie. And I love Gary Cole. I should love Principal Shepard. Sometimes he says funny things, but largely, No, not really. Meanwhile, Principal Lewis, I took a deuce on my desk. I could quote him all day. Principal Lewis is fantastic. My job is mostly administrative. Like, he nails being that effective, weird, wild principal that, I love that Steve and his friends call out how weird Principal Lewis is, but he keeps having a job, and it works. Even that episode, Vice Principal, where you have Steve understanding why Principal Lewis is as laid back and casual. Do you really think any other show would take the time to explain why a character is like that? Even if they never revisit it again, even if that is just a one-off thing, the fact that they took the time to go, hey, maybe we show that Principal Lewis actually really did care about people and he does have a charm to him, that works. And that also really works for Steve and Principal Lewis's relationship. And they're doing that, 18 seasons into a show? That's crazy to me. Do you even remember Principal Wally from the Cleveland show? You lying? You a big fat fibber? All right, so long as you said no, I know you're no fibber. Principal Lewis is the one character I always see people that aren't even American Dad fans quoting or showing off in GIFs, or just like, I love this guy, he's so great. I have seen so many Principal Lewis shorts shared by people that I know do not watch the show at all, and they're like, this is great, I really should watch American Dad sometime. And the fact that Kevin Michael Richardson has gone years without winning an Emmy until F is for Family is criminal. He is fantastic. And obviously, Principal Lewis wouldn't be half the character he is without his influence, without his voice. And it's just, his delivery is one of the it's a career best performance. And again, I know I'm saying that about Kevin Michael Richardson, a man's been in well over 400 productions, but it's true. Principal Lewis is just, he is one of the best comedic characters ever written, ever performed, and ever just brought to life. Every time I see Principal Lewis, I get excited. And if there is any character that just genuinely makes you smile every time you see them, they deserve to be in your top 10 list of anything. If a character evokes any sort of emotion from you, that is a success in my book. Even in episodes where Principal Lewis is the absolute worst, I do not regret Principal Lewis existing. I cannot say that about every character in Family Guy. Principal Lewis is an icon. Number 2, Tuttle. And then there's Sad Fatty. Again, I could do a whole video on Sad Fatty. I think the most important thing is that Tuttle, in the Fox era, was largely non-existent. He was a homebound widower who was 500 plus pounds and bedridden, and over time, they sort of rehabilitated Tuttle's character from that moment. They made Tuttle into an endearing, sad, pathetic entity that elevates the neighborhood. And wow, yeah, he sounds like a broken record, but Richard Kind is a big part of why Tuttle works, because Richard Kind is not only a famed friend of George Clooney, but a wonderful voice actor. I love hearing Richard Kind in anything. You cried at Inside Out, don't lie to me. And I think it's that mix of just, desperate optimism and self-defeating dialogue that makes Tuttle so endearing. Like, if it was any other character, I don't think the Sad Fatty story would have worked as well as it did. But that scene with him eating the cake out of the trash, the story of old Ulysses just having snot and Tuttle pretending to be father and son just so that they have a connection with someone, is great. I love what they turned Tuttle into for the TBS era. Tuttle is in Rabbit Ears, and he's a wonderful addition to it. He is a great foil for Stan to play off of in one of the best episodes of the entire show. And a lot of that has to do, again, with Richard Kind's delivery. He has that perfect balance of comedic slapstick and dramatic. He can do whatever you need, and Tuttle can be whatever he has to be. Now, if American Dad got canceled after 5 seasons, Tuttle wouldn't even be on my radar. I need to be abundantly clear. Early Fox era Tuttle was whatever. He was much like the Mamaris. Remember the Mamaris? No one does. That's why they've died like 9 times in the TBS era, which is honestly pretty great. It's like seeing all the stuffed animals of Reggie and everything. Like, they keep hinting that Reggie's around, but they never actually give him a line. I love the awareness to those little side bits. But Tuttle went from just being, the fat guy with a fat wife that live in the neighborhood, to a creatively odd character that could rival Buckle, that could rival, Greg and all the wild things Greg does, or the Smiths. Tuttle had a Wraith girlfriend. Tuttle is now involved in a lot of the Smith house's goings on, and I love how that has almost corrupted his character. How that has made him into this, he's singing the radio edit of Last Resort as he gets shoved up Rogu's rectum. He is an icon. He is a one-of-a-kind character and a one-of-a-kind redemption story that really shows why American Dad has stayed fresh for 20 years. Tuttle is peak. And at number 1, the Colonel. Now, a lot of people have justifiably criticized the lack of time I have given to the Colonel. When we think of one of the most influential people in American Dad, obviously I have failed as a critic, as a reviewer, as a lover of American Dad, that I really only dedicated like 2 minutes to talking about the Colonel. The Colonel has been in the series, has been in the DNA of the show since, the second season, whenever Passover happened, when Steve and Snot were explaining, Passover and all the little Easter goings-on. Our first major Easter episode. You remember this. And that was the first time we really saw the Colonel as that sort of pseudo-father figure to Stan. Remember, the Colonel came back to help after Jack left. It was just Stan, his mom, and the Colonel for a large part of Stan's life. And while he only got some lessons from the Colonel, the fact that the Colonel stuck around, the fact that this man, Walter Withersby, was willing to sell his ivory collection to put Stan through college? He has been watching over the Smith family. And do you remember what he said to Stan? Do you remember what happened in Passover? Because Stan was upset. He was upset that Steve didn't want to do the eggs anymore, and he was tired of all the Easter events, and because Steve is ungrateful. But the Colonel sat Stan down, and he told him, hey, kids grow out of these things. It is how we know that birds can finally spread their wings and fly on their own. I think about that every day. I think of how supportive the Colonel was to Stan in his time of need. The way he hugs and he loves Steve. He genuinely wants to see everyone in the family do well. And you see it. It is such a subtle thing in American Dad. But every time you see these Easter episodes, every time you see this, it's sort of like the Family Guy Thanksgiving episodes. You never expect them to be that dark and emotional, but the way he talked about that safari, the way those lions stalked him, and the way he was able to finally get home, the fact that it even gave Roger chills shows the impact of the Colonel. The fact that they could kill the Colonel off for a joke in Death by Dinner Party, the fact that they could take a pillar of the Smith family away, and the Smith family, at this point, could walk without the crutch that was the Colonel, shows the strength, it shows the durability, the absolute impressive tenacity of Smith House. And, I wasn't expecting them to reference it again, but in Cracked, the Egg Story, the season 17 Easter episode, when you see Stan standing on that cliff, the Colonel's ashes in his hand, and then he eats it, I get it. I get that he wouldn't want to get rid of the Colonel. I get that that's a weird thing for Stan to do. It's an odd thing for anyone to do, but it makes sense for Stan. He wasn't going to let another father figure run out on him. And I appreciate what the Colonel always represented and how he's been a part of some of our favorite episodes. I have no idea where I came up with the Stan ate his ashes bit. It reminded me of a bit from, like, Bless the Hearts, but yeah, you know, everyone's favorite character, the Colonel, from all of those classic episodes. I will admit, making those screenshots was a ton of fun. I don't know. I tickled myself on some of them. I love this one in particular. This is my favorite one because, like, what? You don't remember that one? You don't remember him behind the counter in joint custody? It must be because you're a little pothead. Maybe splash some water on your face. Rewatch that episode. It's a great episode. You're not really out anything. I just, no, it's more of a top 9, but whatever. Anything you think I was right on, wrong on? Who are your top 10 characters? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like what you saw, consider liking, subscribing, and telling your friends. We're out here. American Dad is this perfect amalgamation. It is greater than the sum of its parts. And I think a lot of that has to do with how they use their side characters. Because, yeah, even a character like the Colonel can get a Graggle Simpson, idea created around him because he's that kind of timeless design. I love the Colonel. He's fantastic. I love so many one-off characters, and the fact that we have so many side characters like Principal Lewis, like Greg, like Tuttle, like Bullock, shows that they care about the world. They care about the audience, and they want the audience to laugh and have a good time. The writing on American Dad is top notch, and I love celebrating the characters of the show. That being said, we've done side characters, we've done Roger personas, so really the only thing we're left with is, what are some of the best episodes of the Smith family? What are some of the best Klaus episodes, Stan episodes, Francine episodes? Well, there's only one way to find out. Anyway, that's going to do it for us here at the Lecture Hall. Hey, if you like the channel and want to support it, consider joining our Patreon or membership programs today. $2 a month gets you special polls, posts, and even your name on this fancy list. Yeah! Look at this list. It's so magical. See, you even get a little song bit there. I don't know what that was, but that's yours. That's all yours. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Stay strong. Keep fighting that good fight. If you're dealing with the weather right now, stay safe. Stay warm. Know that you matter and you will never be alone. I believe in you. A rising tide lifts all ships, and I can feel one hell of a wave a-comin'. Goodbye, everybody, and I'll see you all next time.